2 Chronicles 29, Hezekiah succeeds Ahaz in Judah. Hezekiah became king when he was 25 years old, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. He did right in the sight of the Lord in accordance with everything that David his father had done. In the first year of his reign, in the first month, he opened the doors of the house of the Lord, which his father had closed, and repaired them, and replaced the gold overlay. He brought in the priests and Levites and gathered them into the square on the east. Then he said, the reform has begun. Then he said to them, Levites, listen to me. Now consecrate and dedicate yourselves, and consecrate the house of the Lord, the God of your fathers, and get the filth of idol worship out of the holy place. Time to wipe everything out. Get rid of the yuck in your life. Sometimes it's good to do a fast and a wipe out of yuck in your life, and just to start fresh again. For our fathers have been unfaithful and have done evil in the sight of the Lord our God, and they have abandoned him and turned their faces away from the dwelling place of the Lord, and have turned their backs toward him. They have also closed the doors of the temple porch and put out the lamps, and they have not burned incense nor offered burnt offerings in the holy place to the God of Israel. Therefore the wrath of the Lord has been against Judah and Jerusalem, and he has made them an object of terror, of horror, and of hissing, just as you see with your own eyes. For behold, our fathers have fallen by the sword, and our sons and our daughters and our wives are in captivity because of this. Now it is in my heart to make a covenant with the Lord God of Israel, so that his burning anger will turn away from us. My sons, do not be negligent and careless now, for the Lord has chosen you to stand in his presence, to attend to his service, to be ministers and burn incense. Then the Levites arose, all the different Levites, tells all the names. They gathered their brothers together, consecrated themselves, and went in to cleanse the house of the Lord as the king had commanded. The priests went into the inner part of the house to cleanse it, and every unclean thing they found in the temple of the Lord they brought out of the courtyard of the Lord's house. Then the Levites received it to take out to the Kidron Valley for disposal. Isn't it? It's interesting. Like, we think about like getting rid of the leaven in the house, like the if you watch like the shows, and they go through and they have to get rid of any kind of piece of bread or crumbs on the floor, and you think, what a tedious task to have to go through. And now we have brooms, we have vacuums, suck things up real quick. So those jobs are easy, right? Cleaning your house and making it clean, but how much harder it is to go through it, and effort it takes to go through and clean our heart and go through and take out the things that are the idols, the things that are standing in the way of the things God has for us. It makes things to be very thorough to go through those and do a very careful, deep clean of your heart on a regular basis. Now they began the consecration on the first day of the first month of the 8th day of the month. They came to the porch of the Lord for the 8 days. They consecrated the house of the Lord. On the 16th day of the first month they finished. Then they went inside to King Hezekiah and said, we have cleansed the entire house of the Lord, the altar of burnt offerings with all of its utensils, and the table of showbread with all its utensils. Moreover, we have prepared and consecrated all the utensils which the king had discarded during his reign in unfaithfulness, and behold, they are in front of the altar of the Lord. So now we've got Hezekiah restores the temple worship. He arose early and assembled the officials of the city, and they went up to the house of the Lord. They brought 7 bulls, 7 rams, a bunch to do offerings for the kingdom, and they slaughtered the bulls, and they took the blood and sprinkled on the altar. And the rams, they did the same thing, and the lambs. And they brought the male goats as sin offerings before the king in the assembly, and they laid their hands on them to symbolize the transference of their sins. The priests slaughtered them and cleansed the altar from sin with their blood to atone for all of Israel, because the king commanded that the burnt offerings and the sin offerings be made for all Israel. Hezekiah stationed the Levites in the house of the Lord with cymbals, with harps, with lyres, in accordance with the command of David his ancestor, and of Gad the king's seer, and of Nathan the prophet, for all the command was from the Lord through his prophets. The Levites stood with the musical instruments of David, and the priests with the trumpets, and Hezekiah gave orders and to burn the offerings on the altar. And when they burnt offerings began, the song of the Lord also accompanied the trumpets, accompanied by the instruments of David, king of Israel. The entire congregation worshiped. The singers also sang, and the trumpets sounded. All this continued until the burnt offering was finished. It'd be a long time. You'd be worshiping for a long. If you had to burn the burnt offerings, think how long it would take to burn those items. You'd be worshiping for a long time. And it's worshiping and then singing. So it doesn't have to just be a continual singing. It's, worshiping the Lord. When they were completed, the king and all who were present bowed down and worshiped God. And also King Hezekiah and the officials ordered the Levites to exclaim praises to the Lord with the words of David and of Asaph the seer, and they exclaimed praise and joy and bowed down and worshiped. And then Hezekiah said, now you have consecrated yourself to the Lord. Approach and bring sacrifices and thank offerings to the house of the Lord. And the assembly brought in them, and all those who were willing brought burnt offerings. The number of burnt offerings was 70 bulls, 100 rams, and 200 lambs. All these were burnt offerings for the Lord. The consecrated things were 600 bulls and 3,000 sheep. There were too few priests, and they were unable to skin all the burnt offerings. So until the other priests had consecrated themselves, their brothers, the Levites, helped them until the work was done. For For the Levites were more upright in heart and more conscientious than the priests in consecrating themselves. There were also many burnt offerings with the fat of the peace offerings and with the drink offerings for the burnt offerings. So the service of the Lord was established again. They got it again. Then Hezekiah and all the people rejoiced because of what God had prepared for the people, for the thing came about suddenly. Isn't that a really good thing? Once you cleanse something, I think of going through a fast and you're just cleansing out all the junk in your life. You're cleansing out your desires for food. You're cleansing out a lot of spiritual things. You're cleansing out a lot of thought patterns and thinking that you have toward, wrong things. And it's like God restores that worship inside of you. And so it's like it says suddenly. It came about suddenly. And that happens. You don't have to wait. If you're waiting for something in your life, you're going through things and you seem like you keep praying and praying and praying for the same thing, nothing's happening, I recommend doing a fast. Do a fast. Separate yourself from things. A fast is a separation from things. Get rid of your phone. Get rid of things so that you can focus fully on God and let God speak to you in the matters. Sometimes it's about getting rid of all the noise so that you can be nice and quiet and listen to Him. So, all right, we're going through. I'll see you tomorrow.